then when he comes to this platform of realizing Krishna Chandan pastime, if he comes to this platform of being a lover, being the father or the mother, or this service, we should see that we are naturally becoming more enlivened to serve Krishna with inspiration, not with grudge, like, okay, today I have to perform devotional service. That's there in the beginning. Sadhana bhakti, that one continues that. Not sadhana bhakti never stops. Those activities, they never stop. But those activities become, they become spontaneous, means they become, we do the same activity with love. They become tinged with love. They become more, and more we do that, the more we come to the platform of natural affection for Krishna. Whereas right now it is not artificial, but it is to some extent we have to force ourselves. It's like, okay, I have to hear Bhagavatam class today. Okay, I have to sit through this hour of Bhagavatam class without trying to fall asleep. Okay, stay awake. Or okay, I have to try to hear a lecture. Okay, oh my God, okay, I have to hear this lecture. I have to read Prabhupada's books. I have to make sure I read Prabhupada's books. And you have to sit down and, okay, it's only been 15 minutes. Oh my God. All right, and read for another. It feels like it's been an hour. Look at the clock again. It's been 2 minutes. So this is more of this is okay, pushing oneself to do it, and this is very good. But we should see that as we grow in our devotional service, that this natural Krishna's pastimes to hear Srimad Bhagavatam should come about. That we're very excited to sit in Srimad Bhagavatam class, and we're very excited to churn the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam, to see different angles, with the understanding of how the Acharyas has presented everything, be able to dive deeply into the ocean, as Rupa Goswami has given, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which is unlimited. So the devotees of the Lord in Vrindavan, this is what they're engaged in. They're engaged in constantly hearing and engaging in the pastimes of the Lord, and they're never tired of it. You never hear in the pastimes of Krishna that the gopis became tired of hearing about Krishna, so they decided to go to the river and just do whatever they liked. Wherever they went, they couldn't stop thinking about Krishna. Even when they tried to forget him, they couldn't stop. They would try to forget him, but that would torture them, because it's just like, we can't forget, we can't stop. That is their level of affection. That is the level of affection that they were at. So it requires us to develop this affection. And important point Prabhupada makes in one of these purports is that these are not ordinary persons. They are not liars. Like here is mentioned, they are liars. But Prabhupada is saying they're not like ordinary liars of this material world. This is the pastimes of the Lord, which facilitates the pleasures of Krishna. So these boys who are lying, or Krishna himself, who is a liar, one should never accuse such devotees of being ordinary boys speaking lies. They're not ordinary boys. They are great sages that have performed thousands of years of austerities, and therefore Prabhupada, he says that by great austerities, they were able to attain such a position. That here, Prabhupada says that, for they attained the stage of associating Krishna by great austerities, and Prabhupada specifically quotes this verse, tapasa brahmacharena samena cha damena cha tyagena satya suchabhyam yamena niyamena va. So this verse, the concentrating the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo austerity of voluntary giving of sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, non-violent, follow the regulative principles, regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, words, and mind. These sins are like the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity. So Prabhupada specifically quotes this first line, tapasa brahmacharin samena cha damena cha. That by this practice of this celibacy, by the practice of this austerities, by these cleanliness and all these different, by fully controlling the senses and fully controlling the mind, such great personalities were able to attain the positions of being personal associates of Krishna as cowherd boys. Now, they weren't ordinary sages who were just controlling their minds and just controlling their just brahmacharis, but there were sages whose controlled mind means they were completely absorbed in engaging the mind in the service of the Lord. Actually, great yogis who perform austerities like this, who may sit and perform different yoga postures or things like that, they may perform devotional service within the mind also, as we have heard from some of our great acharyas, that when they were not able to perform devotional service with their body, they would perform devotional service with their mind, which is actually considered non-different. So by great austerities, by brahmacharya, by fully controlling. So this is one aspect of brahmacharya, that he is fully controlled, that he is celibate, he's keeping his life air very dear, very, very controlled. So it is very important to understand that one cannot just attain such a position by just a little bit of Hari Bol, Hare Krishna, but it requires quite a high level of austerity. It requires quite a level of dedication to come to this position of actually having affection and love for Krishna. It is not an ordinary thing. It should not be taken cheaply. It is not. We never think of ourselves on that platform. As soon as we think of ourselves on that platform, then we can consider ourselves fallen and have fallen down. We have become covered not by Yoga Maya, but by Mahamaya. Why? Because Krishna Prabhupada has instructed us to worship in the form of Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan. Because we have a general tendency of Sahajavad, of taking things very cheaply. This is what Sahaja means. To just take things very cheaply. Yes, I'm a cowherd boy and you're a cowherd girl, and we love Krishna so much. And while we perform illicit sex and go eat karmi food and watch movies and do all this nonsense at the same time. I've heard it so many times in being around in the movement. So one should be very careful not to take an artificial position in thinking he is on that platform, or her, that I am a gopi and I'm a gopa in the spiritual world. All this is nonsense talk. This is not Krishna conscious talk. Srila Prabhupada did not train his disciples to speak in such a way. And therefore sometimes he's criticized, your Srila Prabhupada didn't give the highest thing. He only gave Vishnu Bhakti, he didn't give Krishna Bhakti. Nonsense talk. Srila Prabhupada saw on the level which we were at. And so he gave us this process of sadhana bhakti, which is very much intertwined with it's actually Raganuga, but he's giving this sadhana bhakti for us to practice day in, day out, chant your rounds, read Prabhupada's books, understand the philosophy, surrender to Krishna. This is what Srila Prabhupada has given us in order to bring us to this platform eventually. We should not desire to jump onto that platform. We should not think, I can't wait to be a gopi or a gopa. This is sahajavad. This is nonsense. This is taking things cheaply. You don't understand what it means to be that. You don't understand what the austerities that are required to get to that platform. You don't understand the level of control one has to have. It is not just any Tom, Dick, and Harry can walk into the door and in a few years, I chanted Hare Krishna for 3 years now, I'm on level of bhav, I have so much feeling. One will simply just fall down. So one should never imitate the position of Mama Yashoda. One should never imitate the positions of the cowherd boys. One should always take a humble position, thinking himself to be so fallen, like we see our Acarya, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and our own Srila Prabhupada. That there is definitely, we see that our acharyas, great acharyas, not conventional, They describe their transcendental relationship with Krishna also. But we specifically are taught to take that position of humility, by which Lord Chaitanya is very pleased. This aspect of humility, Lord Chaitanya is very pleased by that. So one should not falsely take upon this position of the mother of Krishna or the friend of Krishna. That is there in our natural position already, and that will be naturally awakened. It is not something that is artificially brought about. We do not try to feel, we just perform devotional service, and the feeling will come. Do not try to feel devotional service. Oh, I have this feeling for just sit there and think I have so much feeling for Krishna. Wow, no, this is nonsense. The feeling should come. You perform devotional service, just like sometimes we don't feel like dancing. Prabhupada said, you dance and the feeling will come. So you perform devotional service and the feeling will come over time. It may not come straight away. Sometimes it may come just as we have our own experiences within devotional service, which has kept us floating and alive in devotional service. Sometimes Krishna just gives us that mercy and we feel alive in devotional service, sometimes for no reason. Sometimes, like my Guru Maharaj describes, he was going through so much hardship in Bengal, I believe. And just like not much results, and just like day in, day out, just difficult. Thailand, I think it might be in Thailand. I think it was Thailand, right? And he says one day, just at Mangal Arati, it was just chanting the prayers, and he just felt the waves of ecstasy. He could feel the mercy of Krishna. So the mercy of Krishna is not awakened, and this loving relationship with Krishna is not awakened trying to feel, but it's awakened by actually performing surrender, performing activities within Krishna consciousness, giving up our bad habits, doing those things which are favorable to Krishna consciousness and rejecting those things which are unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Always try to remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. My spiritual master told me and Mitravan Prabhu, my dear God brother, in our initiation, that there's two instructions that is very important. He said, I know you think I'm going to say always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna, but actually that's very difficult to do in our state. But what we can do is always do those that are favorable for Krishna consciousness and remember those things that are unfavorable for Krishna consciousness. That is desired. That we can do. We can examine ourselves. We can get proper association and instructions, and in that way accept those things which are favorable for us and reject those things which are unfavorable for us. So in this way we can develop love and affection for Krishna. It is not developed through some artificial means. It is not developed through some concoction. It is developed, love is developed through following the acharyas. Just like in Vrindavan, I think they were asking Srila Prabhupada, who should we follow, Srila Prabhupada? What associate? He said, you follow me. You follow me. You follow Srila Prabhupada. Follow his instruction. He is the resident of Vrindavan. He is the dear, very dear, intimate servant of Krishna in his transcendental relationship with Krishna that Srila Prabhupada has spoken about sometime. His loving affection with Krishna. So we simply follow the spiritual master's instruction. We do not try to imitate the spiritual master. So in this way, we come to at the level of seeing Krishna as Vrindavan Krishna. Right now we should worship Krishna in awe and reverence, not in casual, like what we see with actually this is worship that's being performed here, Mother Yashoda, with this pastime. This is worship. Worship is loving affection on the higher platform. That is it. But on the platform of on our platform, on our platform, we see Krishna in Acarya Bhav. We see him in, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that I should not become casual. Just like we do not become, similarly, just like that, we do not become casual with the spiritual master. Always thinking oneself lower than a blade of grass. Always see the master, Supreme Personality. never becoming casual, never becoming, what is this word, familiar. Familiarity breeds contempt. So never be. So similarly, when we walk into the temple, we don't walk in and say, "Hey, Krishna, wow, you're such a great friend. I don't have to pay obeisance to you. You're my friend." None of this nonsense. This one in awe and reverence with awe. This is the supreme personality of Godhead. When I walk the temple, there's gravity. We're not fooling around and joking around and we're here seriously worshiping the supreme personality of Godhead. We don't do casually getting out in the temple. We don't just do whatever we do everywhere else. This is a place to hear and chant about the supreme personality of Godhead, to put Him in the center and worship Him. That is the main function of the temple room. So in this, we'll develop love and affection by working day in, day out, our whole life. 50 years, 60 years. Don't think in the next 10 years you're going to achieve Krishna Bhakti and you're going to be full of love and you're going to be some great Mahatma that's come to save the world. Nonsense talk. Desire to just be a servant within the movement of Srila Prabhupada. Whether it means sweeping the floor day in, day out for the rest of your life, or whether it means being on the streets distributing Prabhupada's books in the hot sun, in the cold winter, wherever it is, traveling so many hours like our devotees are doing, hours, driving alone 16 hours, 15 hours, performing these austerities. This is real love for Krishna. This is real love. Love isn't sitting in the temple and just this is nonsense. Real love means to go out and stick your neck out for Krishna, as a lot of the times Mahotsa Prabhu will say in such a way. To lay one's life down in the service of Krishna. To give one's body, mind, and intelligence in working for Krishna. All three. All three. This is love. This is love for Krishna. This is what Krishna appreciates. So one should not artificially or cheaply make pastimes very cheap. Some cheap thing, not just something, this is very serious. This is serious business that we are doing. So this is important. Brahmacharya means brahmacharya for the brahmacharya that is for everyone. Grihastha is a grihastha brahmachari. He only performs sexual activity for the sake of begetting children, not for sense enjoyment. So in that way, the grihastha is also a brahmachari. He performs austerities. What is the austerity of a grihastha? To remain simple. What is austerity? To not build a big mansion and become completely distracted. To remain simple and engage in the standard activities of Krishna consciousness day in, day out. So one requires to perform level of austerity for the sake of Krishna, not just austerities for the sake of austerities, for the sake of spiritual advancement. Tapodivyan, that is transcendental austerity. So when we perform that austerity for Krishna, and we're dedicated to the mission, then Srila Prabhupada has promised us, and these books promised us, and Lord Chaitanya has promised us, Krishna himself has promised us, that you will attain that realm by which you'll never come back. So one can come to this consciousness. Krishna consciousness means complete dedication to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then when we're situated on that platform, these feelings of Krishna will naturally arouse after years of devotional service, and will be symptomized by all the things that Rupa Goswami speaks about, the symptoms of a pure devotee. All these things will symptomize one who doesn't waste time, one who's always hearing and chanting about Krishna, one who's always spreading the pastimes of Krishna and the knowledge of Krishna. One who is very grave, one who is, all these things are described, clean, all these different qualities are described of those who are on the platform of loving relationship with Krishna. At the same time, they'll never reveal that openly. They may reveal it to their few close associates, just like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does the same thing in his pastimes, very close, always closed off. So one should be very careful in this regard, not to take things very cheaply, and should always consider himself very low. He should never consider himself, oh yes, I'm such and such gopi, and this is all nonsense talk. So Mother Yashoda, in her transcendental relationship with Krishna, she can never think of him as Narayana. She can never think of himself as the supreme. Therefore, that action of Yogamaya, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord, which acts to perfect all the pastimes of the Lord with his different types of devotees, who could play such wonders without being God? So God himself, he forgets he's God and allows his internal potency, Yogamaya, his energy, to completely arrange everything in such a way that he is the supreme enjoyer. That he simply goes on enjoying life, forgetting that he is God. So this is the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which we can relish. We read about them. Janma karma chame dibhyam. We have to read about them and hear about them in order to understand that this is the ultimate goal of life, to come to this platform. So Mother Yashoda, but she could never look at as Krishna as Narayan, because that would destroy the rasa. That would completely inhibit her from having that loving relationship with Krishna. Actually, in that pastime where she's seeing Krishna as the supreme, as she sees all this universe and starts to think, well, maybe this is like this is not an ordinary child. This is the supreme personality of God. She immediately faints by the. She's so overwhelmed by seeing this. Obviously, if anybody that sees a whole cosmic manifestation within the mouth of a little child, would be pretty shocking. She faints and then she doesn't remember. She goes on about the activities like she did before. Similarly here, she's seeing that, is described here. Seeing this, she was doubtful in her mind, but she was convinced in a different manner of the mystic nature of Krishna. And so the potency of Yogamaya, she was okay. Anyways, he has some sort of, he's able to do some tricks. Maybe he's some mystic. He has some mystic nature. And she was convinced in a different matter. She was just, this is some illusion, something. There's nothing significant. She didn't give it so much importance. So this is the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, by which we can relish and always think about and purify ourselves, and slowly by hearing about it again and again and again, we will also develop this affection for Krishna. So I don't have so much prepared for this class because I'm a little bit spaced out here and there. Sorry about that. But so Prabhupada says a few more things in these purports here that are very important. Mata Yashoda challenged Krishna, if you have not eaten earth, then open your mouth wide. When challenged by his mother in this way, Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, to exhibit pastimes like a human child, opened his mouth. Although the Supreme Personality God, Krishna, who is full of all opulence, did not disturb his mother's parental affection, his opulence was automatically displayed, for Krishna's opulence is never lost at any stage, but is manifest at the proper time. Purport. Without disturbing the ecstasy of his mother's affection, Krishna opened his mouth, and displayed his own natural opulences. When a person is given varieties of food, there may be 101 varieties. But if one likes ordinary spinach, he prefers to eat that. Similarly, although Krishna was full of opulences, now by the order of Mata Yashoda, he opened wide his mouth like a human child, and did not neglect the transcendental humor of maternal affection. Well, that's an amazing analogy Prabhupada gives. That there may be 101 varieties, but if one likes ordinary spinach, he prefers to eat that. Similarly, Krishna was full of opulences, but he instead of displaying those opulences, he chose to display just his simple nature, his nature as a child. So Krishna's his childhood pastimes are very amazing. They're very relishable. All his pastimes are very relishable. But his childhood pastimes are very sweet. And so here is describing how that is so in Srila Prabhupada's purports, how Krishna, he engages his internal potency, and although he owns all the opulences of the world, he chooses to be very simple in his behavior and his showing of his opulence. When Krishna opened his mouth wide by the order of Mother Yashoda, she saw within his mouth all moving and non-moving entities, outer space and all directions, along with mountains, islands, oceans, the surfaces of earth, the blowing wind, fire, the moon, and the stars. She saw the planetary systems, water, light, air, sky, and creation by transformation of Ahankara. She also saw the senses, the mind, sense of perceptions, and the three qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. She saw the time allotted for the living entities. She saw a natural instinct and the reactions of karma, and she saw desires and different varieties of bodies, moving and non-moving. Seeing all these aspects of cosmic manifestation, along with herself and Vrindavan Dham, she became doubtful and fearful of her son's nature. Here we go. There's a similar verse. So Mother Yashoda began to argue within herself, is this a dream? Or is this an illusory creation by the external energy? Has this been manifested by my own intelligence? Or is it some mystic power of the child? She just couldn't accept that Krishna could be the Supreme Person here. Therefore, let me surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offer my obeisance to Him who is beyond conception of human speculation, the mind, activities, words, and arguments, who is the original cause of cosmic manifestation, by whom the entire cosmos is maintained, and led by whom we can conceive of its existence. Let me simply offer my obeisances, for He is beyond my contemplation, speculation, and meditation. He is beyond all my material activities. It is by the influence of the Supreme Lord's Maya, that I am wrongly thinking Nanda Maharaj is my husband, that Krishna is my son, and that because I am the queen of Nanda Maharaj, all the wealth of cows and calves and are all my possessions, and all the cowherd men and their wives are all my subjects. Actually, I also am eternally subordinate to the Supreme Lord. He is my ultimate shelter. She becomes very philosophical all of a sudden. Mother Yashoda, by the grace of the Lord, could understand the real truth. But then again, the Supreme Master, by the influence of internal potency, Yoga Maya, inspired her to become absorbed in these intense maternal affections of her son. Immediately forgetting Yoga Maya's illusion that Krishna had shown the universal form within his mouth, Mother Yashoda took her son on her lap as before, feeling increased affection in her heart for her transcendental child. It's amazing how Mother Yashoda, she sees this, she thinks that, oh, well, let me pray to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She doesn't think, oh, this child could be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She goes, this is some mystic thing that is happening by the grace of the Supreme Lord. And she so much so, she thinks that she's on a bodily conception of life. I'm considering Nanda Maharaj to be my husband and Krishna to be my son, and what kind of illusion am I in? And so let me surrender unto the Supreme Lord, who I am his eternal, because I am his eternal servant. It's very amazing how she almost takes the position of a conditioned soul. Although on the highest, she has the highest position in the spiritual world as Mother Yashoda. So that is the aspect of the transcendental affection for Krishna also. That she's just so forgetful of that this child is the supreme. She just cannot accept him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much so she accepts these things. I'm in the bodily conception of life. How can I think like this? I'm so illusioned. I think that this is my son and this is my husband. Actually, everything is temporary. Actually, I am the servant of Narayana. She is thinking. But by the influence of Maya again, of the internal potency, she says that actually by the influence of Maya that I'm wrongly thinking. But then it's stated later that the influence of internal potency, again the Supreme Master, by the influence of internal potency, Yoga Maya, inspired to become absorbed in intense maternal affection for his son. Immediately forgetting Yoga Maya's illusion that Krishna has shown the universal form within her mouth, Mother Yashoda took her son on her lap, and with feeling increased affection in her heart for a transcendental child. So it invoked more and more affection for a child. These pastimes just invokes more and more affection. These affections just grow and grow and grow for Krishna. So, just like even on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when Arjuna saw this Virata Rupa, Arjuna was like, no, I don't want, he wanted to see it, but then when he saw it, it's like, oh Krishna, please come back in your original form. Please, I desire to see that form again. So similarly here, she doesn't understand, obviously, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but she's thinking in these ways. This is the transcendental affection and love and the pastimes of Krishna that are unlimited and incomprehensible. Who could understand these things? Who could have revealed to such things to us? Who could even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as Mother Yashoda can't even imagine it, as a boy a cowherd boy to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Who could give this knowledge? Lord Chaitanya revealed this for us. Srila Prabhupada revealed this for us. So we do not take it very cheaply. We take it very seriously. We take it with proper understanding. We ourselves remain humble and never put ourselves on such a platform. So we can aspire. We can be inspired by this loving affection of the Supreme of the devotees of the Lord in Vrindavan. But at the same time, be very careful in our path of devotional service not to be inflicted by Sahajyavad. So I'll end my class there. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Prabhu, just a comment. Going along with the theme of your class, Mahotsav Prabhu, in our Send Scores Here group, the logo is the Gaudiya Mutt, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually referred to the Brihat Mridanga as the path of Raganuga. So you can see that that's the highest form of worship,
Yeah,
helping others come. Yeah, here we go.
That's the logo you're talking about. Vidhi Marg and Rag Marg.
Yeah.
And there's the book there, the Srimad Bhagavatam. and there's a printing press and a Mirdanga. The Brihat Mirdanga.
That logo itself is so worshipable.
It's amazing.
And in this lecture, I sent this morning walk yesterday. It's basically Tamal Krishna Maharaj is on a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada and Rameshwar Prabhu, and they're discussing some of the difficulties that the movement was facing at that time. And TKG was saying that one of the symptoms of a sahaji is they don't like to preach. So we always have to be careful for that, and remember that we're not Bhajananandis, like you're saying, sitting in the temple, crying for Krishna. Or Goshianandi is always in the mood of going out and helping others, and always anxious to see others, get the shelter, rather than, being self-centered, But yeah, all so many great devotees in our lineage too feel that way. I mean, all of our acharyas, Prahlad Maharaj, it's clearly what we should be doing,
Yeah. We're not Bhajananandis. We don't ever, even to the last moment of life, Srila Prabhupada was preaching, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was performing. We see they're setting examples. Even if they're sometimes performing bhajan, by their bhajan, they're really they're preaching. They're never in the mood of, okay, let me just go secluded somewhere and sit there. Even when they're doing bhajan, they're preaching, our acharyas. But specifically, Prabhupada writes in the purports of Srimad Bhagavatam how we should specifically go out, and this mood of our line is to go and preach. And our desire is to preach till we die, to give Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone that we meet till the day we die. Whether we may take, at the very old age, as sometimes Prabhupada has said, one can go to Vrindavan and just chant and hear and feel situated in that way too. But even then, that is also preaching, because one is preaching by example to the rest of the world how one should live his life. And when people come, those devotees who are in Vrindavan also preach about hearing and chanting about Krishna and giving that to Krishna. So at all moments of our life, we're absorbed in that, and we're never absorbed in just thinking there's me and there's Krishna, and that's my only thing in the world to do. Like, yeah, thank you for that. Mahotsa Prabhu had a thing. Mahotsa Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So, I have a lot of experience in this regard, like you know very well. And, I was thinking it's very, very important for us to protect ourselves in this regard, because one of the things, like I've always seen the Sahajas do, is that they make you feel like you are like such a special person. And like, of all the devotees in the world, you somehow have the adhikar and the qualification to like hear all these topics and become a gopi overnight.
Yeah.
But they're basically the whole thing, and the only reason, and they do it in a very subtle way, but the only reason you have this qualification is because of my mercy upon you. Like that's the whole thing. Like, if had you not met me, how would you have ever like known about gopis and all this stuff and how you can become a gopi overnight? It doesn't happen like that. So they're very, very expert in making you like feel that way. So we should always understand that the highest, this is a verse in the Brahma Samhita. Pramanai sasadacharaya sadabhyasa nirantaram odhayaratmanatmanam bhaktam apyatamam lavet. Which means that the highest highest levels of devotion is always attained in slow degrees. There's no you become a manjari overnight.
Yeah.
Unless Lord Chaitanya gives you Kripa Siddhi. And Kripa Siddhi is a very rare thing. So, but the Sahajas make you feel like, oh, I got you. This time, you're so lucky that you come in touch with a great Mahabhagavat like me, and I'm going to bless you to become a Manjari overnight. But that never happens. And Prabhupada always wants us to be very, very careful of such cheaters, So anyway, I'm going to say that.
Yeah, me, Mahotsa Prabhu, and some of us have had a good share of experiences.
Yeah, definitely.
So many. I mean, like myself. I mean, we also, not being very young in devotional service at that time, we got also like sucked into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, all glories to Vishnuchitra Prabhu,
Yeah.
Pull me out of this for sure.
Yeah. All glory to you and Vishnuchitra for pulling me out of that one.
Well, the parampara carries on.
Yeah. So we've gone through it. We've experienced it. They take Prabhupada. Actually, they don't even read Prabhupada's books. They'll read like.
Need to read Prabhupada's books because they've already realized everything which is in Prabhupada's books already.
So they start reading all this.
Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava, Ujjvala Nilamani.
Ujjvala Nilamani, that's a big one.
And then what they say is, you see, Prabhupada just came to give you Sambandha Gyan. See, you understand you're not your body, right? You understand that? That's it. Prabhupada just came to help you. We now will give you, Swarup Siddhi and all this crap,
Also,
That's what
they'll take the purports of Srila Prabhupada and go, actually what Prabhupada is trying to say here.
The inner meaning. The
inner meaning.
I promise myself, anytime I ever hear someone else say inner meaning, I'll go and shoot them, It's like so freaking ridiculous.
So it's like they'll give that. Actually, what Prabhupada is saying here is actually, if you actually look at this literature by this Goswami and this Goswami, actually this is you're meant to relish your real relationship with Krishna. Actually, Prabhupada says one should not, in one place he said one should not just go whimsically to Vrindavan. He should actually go, and if he goes with seriousness, devoid of material desire. Only then he can go. And then they'll say, but actually one is meant to go to Vrindavan, one is meant to bathe in Radhakund, all this thing.
I love bathing in Radhakund so much, bro. Oh my God.
Please don't do it.
It's the worst. It's the worst thing that a freaking neophyte like us can do,
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm such a neophyte. I did it. Yeah, Vrindavan. So yeah, we sometimes, but by the grace of the devotees, even though sometimes we fall into bad association or into false understanding. If we're still sincere and we actually want the real thing, devotees can help us out. And if we're sincere, then we'll take that properly, and be able to come out of that. I was myself. Was a little bit involved in that. I wasn't like full on with it, but like huh? No,
You weren't full on either, you know.
no.
But you had more. You had so much bhav in, in that regard.
It was just I was just trying to follow instruction. I was like, this is my authority, and he's telling me it's okay. So I was like, okay, that was the thing, and I wasn't doing it with the intention of becoming some gopi, and I knew that was freaking weird as hell. I'm never gonna imagine myself to be some girl in the spiritual world. That would be weird as hell for me, at least. But Siddha Pranali, yeah, it's like we're gopis and we're all this. I always thought that was really weird as hell, and I never read that in Prabhupada's books. But just like, things like, they quote like Nectar of Instruction, one should bathe in Radhakund, but Acharyas didn't specifically do that, and then they're saying, oh, they didn't do that, but they're telling us to do it, so you should do it, and then doing it, and just like suffering for that. Even to this day, I'm suffering from that, because going to Vrindavan and not being serious, going to Vrindavan and taking everything cheaply. And to this day, I know that I'm suffering for that, and it's caused so much disturbance in my devotional service because of that. And therefore, it's like I don't know when. Actually, this is probably the reason that I can't go to India for a very long time. Actually, is I'm suffering. Yeah. All the devotees here will come in, become initiated, go to the dhams and go to explore. I'm stuck here. Me and Mahotsav Prabhu, we're stuck here at least for another 8 years or so, and probably. But we're luckily, by the mercy of our spiritual master, we're engaged for us in the topmost service of any place, material and spiritual world. For us, this is everything, just being absorbed in that. So although it's one way was an unfortunate situation, by the mercy of the Guru, it becomes a fortunate situation. So we have to be very careful in this regard. Sorry, it went on and went on about that, but anything else?
These people hate book distribution with a passion, Like that's one thing they hate, because you have to surrender on book distribution. You have to do it. There's no way. So then what they do is they come up with this whole philosophy to avoid book distribution and call it like it's like karma yoga or
Mode
something
passion.
like that,
Mode of
Mode of
passion.
passion, karma yoga. Freaking rascals. Anyway.
Because they're like they're Sahajavad. We only accept Vrindavan, and we don't accept the instructions of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
So, because if they took those, yeah.
We only read like Chaitanya Charitamrita's innermost sections and all this kind of crap,
Yeah. So very careful. Yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. So anything else? Sorry. Yes.
I have a short comment about Sahajaism and my own personal inner dealings with it. And this is, I felt this is kind of personal, but at the same time it's relevant because other people may think the same thing or whatever, and it's also quite funny. But one of the first chapters I read of the Bhagavad Gita was the universal form. And when I read this chapter, I was thinking, man, I went through the same thing when I was on acid, where it everything got really crazy. And then I was like, oh, I just want to be simple again. Anyways, this is just kind of like a funny side point. But that's like, Sahajism, falsely thinking oneself to be on that platform, when in actuality it's like quite the opposite.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question. You're talking about Srila Prabhupada. He instituted Lakshmi Narayana worship with sadhana. And eventually, if it's our position, we'll be brought up to, Vrindavan Leela or something like that. I don't know if I understand this properly. Because at the same time, Lakshmi Narayan worship is perfect in and of itself. It's not like it's like lower in a sense, but at the same time, it's not.
You can't
lower.
look at it as that. Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, there's different gradations. Although they're all fully perfect, there's different gradations of fully perfect. It's inconceivable. It's hard. You can't just understand. It's hard to conceive of. That's what Achinte Veda Veda Tattva. Lakshmi Narayan worship in itself is perfect. But at the same time, we understand that Krishna to Bhagavan Swayam, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is not that it is incomplete in any way, but specifically in the line of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we are aspiring to worship Radha Krishna in that Vrindavan, and that's why you see, like, it's a very Vrindavan mood when we worship. It's not pretty, although Prabhupada told us to see them as Lakshmi Narayan, but we worship him in a Vrindavan mood, because we don't dress them. When you dress deities, if you see in these ISKCON centers where there's Radha Krishna, it's not opulence, it's forest. So you see, like, if this is in Vrindavan, they could decorate with gold and all that. Whereas you go, if you go to South India, you'll see Balaji, and it's just like gold and diamond and just millions and trillions of dollars of gold there. Whereas Vrindavan Krishna is like, what is this? This is just some flowers, some weeds and flowers and leaves that decorate him. So he's worshipped in the mood of Vrindavan. So the Gaudiya Vaishnava, this is the highest form of worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, it doesn't mean that the Rama Bhaktas, this is not lower, but at the same time, there is a transcendental difference. So when we say that this is there, we're performing sadhana bhakti and we're worshipping Lakshmi Narayan, this is to make sure that we do not become familiar. Otherwise, immediately if you try to worship Krishna on the platform of Vrindavan like that, it's dangerous, sahajavad, very quickly. But whereas God should be worshipped in awe and reverence, Narayan is God. Krishna is the son of Mother Yashoda. Narayan is God. And so that's the difference. Whereas when one gets to the rag, when one awakens that natural affection, he starts to naturally be able to worship Krishna in that mood with proper understanding. So that Vaidhi Bhakti or that sadhana bhakti is there in order to it is perfect in itself. It's not that worship of Narayan, Lakshmi Narayan is separate, but on the path of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we're aspiring to worship Radha Krishna in that Vrindavan, mood of Vrindavan. Then one has to be very careful. Therefore, the Acharyas have given like that. And all those activities don't stop. So that's another misconception. It's not that your sadhana bhakti ever stops. It's not that your deity worship ever stops. It's not that you're chanting your rounds or following the regular principles. All those things that are there in sadhana bhakti or Vaidhi bhakti, they're continued, but now they're done with spontaneity. That's the difference. So that's very important. As some sahajas think now you're just worshiping the deity, and when you come to the platform of rag bhakti, then you don't have to do all these things. You just have loving relationship with Krishna. When you come to the platform of rag, you don't have to distribute books. Once you're done with your passion, then you come to the platform of goodness, then you don't have to distribute these books anymore. So this is what sahajas will say. You perform sadhana bhakti just to let go of it. But actually, Srila Prabhupada is an acharya. He's giving us an eternal process. This chanting of our rounds, this listening to the Bhagavatam class, this is all actually rag bhakti on the platform of rag. But this is meant to develop, is meant to bring us up. Actually, this is all the characteristics. This is the 5 angas of bhakti. That they're eternal. They're always. This goes on even after our, once we attain liberation. This is perfect. This is perfect activity. The glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it is not to take in that sadhana and raga. So we let go of sadhana or we let go of vaidhi, and then we come to the platform of raga. Then it's only rag. Right. So raga means just feeling. So one performs devotion service with feeling, and that is aroused by performing intense sadhana bhakti and progressing like that.
So it's not like, one thing I'm getting is that like Lakshmi Narayan worship isn't a precursor to
you're not stepping on
Lakshmi
Lakshmi Narayan to go to Radha Krishna.
Yeah, exactly. But more so like the mood found in Lakshmi Narayan worship is a prerequisite to worship.
Yeah.
Different.
You could say like that. It's also prerequisite means, for us it's required. But if you
Not like the worship of Lakshmi Narayan, but like the mood found in that worship is the prerequisite.
it's required that, so we don't become sahaja. It's required that, but it's also perfection in itself. So it's not like that's not the perfection. It's just worshiping Lakshmi Narayan. That's it. But as we read our Acharya's books and understand this, this attraction towards Krishna naturally awakens. See, then one naturally desires to, just like Lakshmi, she wants to worship Krishna. Although she's completely satisfied in the service of Narayan, she wants to enter the pastimes of Krishna. So similarly, when that natural affection is awakened, it will naturally happen. It's not that now I'm worshipping Lakshmi Narayan, when will I become a devotee of Krishna? No, this is wrong. One shouldn't think like that. This is the Supreme Lord. Let me give myself to Him completely. That is the mood to worship with. If we're thinking like this, now it's Lakshmi Narayan, soon I'll go to Krishna and I'll be higher. And this is wrong thinking. So one should give oneself completely, and then that natural affection will increase. Otherwise, you have a duality mentality of like, this is Lakshmi Narayan, this is a lower platform. When will I get the higher platform? So this is wrong. One should worship with complete surrender and can expect that mercy will flow. So we should not be a separatist mentality like that. Anything else? Anything from the Matajis? Oh, I've gone over time. No. Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.